celebrating the 25th anniversary of your World Championship at driving the Alpine. What was that like? What was it? What did it feel like to drive an F1 car again?
It was amazing. Even before driving it, just being at a factory, being with mechanics, engineers. Some people had already known when I raced there in 2004, same factory. Then being in Monza, because I started racing in Formula 3 in Monza in '89, and then I did a lot of F1 there as well. We did a lot of testing. So to be back into the proper garage, to have the whole, because the whole race team was still set up, it just brought back memories. I've always kept on racing, but this is a different level. And it felt home. When I sat in the car, I poured my seat and I was there with the wheel. It was the most comfortable place I could ever be. Just that feeling was amazing. Then pulling out of the garage and just going, there was no moment of surprise. Just getting out of the pit, it was as if all those years away from F1 happened yesterday. The memory, the brain is really amazing in that kind of stuff, because memory doesn't have any timeline to it, basically. And when it needs the information, it just goes and picks it up and it just carries on where it left off. And that was amazing.
And the 2021 car that you drove, quite different to the most recent car you've driven before. What's the biggest difference between these cars now?
A lot of grip, a lot of downforce. A lot of torque. With the older car, you were kind of fighting the engine. It was, I think the last V10 I drove, it was almost 1,000 horsepower. So there was a lot of power, but it was mean. It was high revs. There was a lot of grunt. Where this comes from the turbo, from low revs, from the electrical part, and a lot of torque.
Yeah.
And it's very smooth. Which is nice. The tires are big, so a lot of grip, but the car moves a lot of air. So the top speed is slow. We were about doing the same lap times, I did back then, but with 40 kilometers an hour less in the straight.
Wow.
Which means it's super fast in the corners. The braking is late. It's stupidly fast in the high speed corners. Low speed is not so impressive. But the high speed is mental. It defies logic.
Really?
When you go around the corner and you can feel that mechanically, how can this be holding up? How can it be staying on the ground? And you're that's why you need a good seat fit.
Yeah. So if you had 2 weeks of testing, as you would have done back in the day before you got into a Formula One car, how far off the pace would you be? Would you be off the pace?
That's always a dangerous thing. That's always a dangerous thing to say. The pace, then Esteban got in the car and I was within a second. So when he jumped in the car, obviously with old tires and not a quality lap, which is very different. But the car is super stable. So it's actually quite calm to drive it, which is strange. Getting up to speed, I think the issue is the neck at some point, because when you pull over 5 Gs, you need to get used to that. But there was never the apprehension of speed, of coming to the corner and thinking, oh, I should be braking. And no, there was no issue with braking super late. That was not a problem. I get a few laps in the simulator probably helped, because then I knew that the grip was there.
Yeah. We asked the viewers of the Go F1 show to send us their questions for you. And one came from somebody called Andrew Lawrenson. And he was asking about how you used to have a short throw on the throttle pedal.
Yeah, he's right. That was an issue. That's really an issue I had, because I think the throttle was probably 3 times longer than what I used to have at the toe, about 20 mil displacement. I even at some point had 18 mil. I found it a lot easier it's the same as when you move a mouse on a computer. If you have to move it a long way, you'll never reach the exact point where you want at speed. There's pros and cons for it, but I always found myself comfortable like that. And having driven a lot of NASCAR, I got used to having long pedals now, so it's not as bad. 20 years ago, I could not have driven the long pedal, but with the modern engines and torque, from what I've understood, it helps to save the tires. But it made it difficult coming out of the low speed corners, for example, because I felt like I was always reaching for the pedal and trying to push it further and further away. So I guess it's hard to change 30 years of habits.
Yeah, I bet. John Lim is asking a question about this year.
And also the short,
Yeah.
hold on, the short
Yeah.
throttle is also, it's easier to just give it a little nudge more and then come off if something goes off. I think you can react a little bit quicker.
That's interesting, because I think he was thinking it's so short that it's like on and off. But you're saying
no, it's not. It's very progressive, but you just, you just has to move your mouse on your computer. You just move it a few millimeters and you're fine. If you make it with the longer move, then you'll always overshoot or not get to wherever you want, because to reach where you want, you have to move too fast.
Yeah.
And once you start giving it too much movement, then you'll second guess where you have to stop. So I guess it's just a habit.
That's interesting. He's a simulator racer. I know this gentleman, so I'm going to ask him to do that with his throttle.
Yeah, but there's a difference also, because in the race car, there's also the G-force that's pushing on your leg, which you don't get in the sim. So the feedback is a little bit different.
Very different, yeah. So looking at this year, 2022, John Lim is saying if you could he's asking about 4 drivers: Max, Lewis, Charles, or Fernando. So Verstappen, Hamilton, Leclerc, or Alonso. Same car, same strategy, no pit stop fumbling. Who would you rate as winning a race? Who would you put your money on?
This year, Max is really, he's hard to beat, because he's always on top shape. Sometimes he overreacts, maybe on emotions a little bit, but his driving has been impeccable. Then Alonso, because he's just been on top form as well, and he knows how to do what it takes. And then in between Charles and Lewis this year, it just depends on which race. Charles has been amazing on some races, but it's been up and down. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Lewis now seems to be back in the groove. It took him a long time to get comfortable with this modern car. The last few races, he seems to be back in the groove.
Yeah. Going back to Max, has it surprised you how strong he's been this year? I mean, relating to how you were having won a world championship, does it make a difference to your approach?
No, just the driving should only get better with the confidence, the fact that there isn't the pressure to win a championship anymore. And then it makes it easier to work with the team and the car. If there's no changes in the team, then it makes it easier to move forward. And it's the same group. It's still Adrian Newey. So, and they're recovered from the first races.
Yeah. Devang Chauhan, I'm not very good at pronouncing his name. Devang Chauhan is asking you whether you think Ferrari can make a better challenge next year than they have this year, given the strength of Red Bull and also Mercedes.
I don't know. They don't seem to have made leaps forward. It looked early in the season that they had the control of the championship, and then it all exploded. Just all went wrong. And now they're chewing up the tires on top of it. So I don't know if it's the way the car is or the drivers that are overdriving it. That there's something going on. So they can get good lap times, but they're chewing up the tires. And I don't think they know why. So unless they can fix that, it will be difficult. It will be really difficult to dismount Red Bull and Verstappen, because right now they got that strong energy going with them, and they rarely make mistake.
What about Mercedes? Do you think they will bounce back next year?
They haven't made progress this year. There was a lot of political play from Toto Wolff and the team to change the rules. And if anything, it favored Red Bull. So it backfired.
Yeah. Talking about the schedule, the calendar of races, the question from Ben, I think slightly tongue-in-cheek, he's asking, if you were to bring back a race that isn't on the calendar now, which one would it be? And then he says, and why is it Sepang? So we know which circuit Ben likes the best. Did you like Sepang?
Sepang was a good track. When it came, there were a few corners I didn't like. It was part of the modern tracks, but when you see what other modern tracks came afterwards, then it turned out that it was quite a good one. to race on. It was good racing. It was hard driving. So it was quite a good track. Oh, my dream track would be the Nordschleife, but that wouldn't happen.
No, that probably wouldn't happen. It's a shame. Daniel Ricciardo, Yannick Leduc is saying that maybe there's a comparison between the last 2 years that Daniel has had, difficult years, comparing to you in 2005 and 06, and ask you to look
I wasn't
back.
the second of my teammates, so no.
What do you think? Because when I look at it, I think it's difficult to believe. Is it that Lando is just fantastically mega, and we
No,
just don't know yet?
I don't know if he's lost his mojo or he doesn't like these modern cars. It's possible. He had a hard time at Alpine, and he's had an awful time at McLaren, and it doesn't look like he can actually work around a car routine that doesn't suit him to bring it to himself. Either that, or he's taking the big paycheck and he's happy. Who knows what can have happened somewhere? But it's not the Ricciardo that we had at Red Bull, obviously, because the difference is massive.
Can it be
it's not possible to comprehend.
Can it be a tiny thing that has a big effect on lap time?
Well, it could be a tiny thing that happened 4 years ago. It doesn't have to be this year. A lot of driving is also in the head, and how you approach the team and how you work with it. Now, not being inside the team, it's impossible for any of us to judge why, how, but it's been too much of it and for too long. So there's something that just doesn't work. Some drivers suddenly lose their speed. That happens. They lose their belief, and suddenly you take 1 or 2 tenths off, you get beaten by your teammate, and that's it. And that started happening when Verstappen started beating him. That's when we started seeing Daniel going down a little bit, and instead of keeping the battle, he moved team. And that was hard. It took a long time for him to start getting results. And then once the things were starting to maybe look like they were going to go well, he jumped ship again. And that just didn't work at all.
No. Final question, bit of a drama at the moment about the cost cap regulations, and in particular, whether a team that has gone over the cost cap needs to be penalized and how. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, there has to be a proper rule on what the penalty is that teams know before the start of the season. Not like a menu of we could do this or we could do that other thing, or maybe if we wake up on a rainy day, then we'll do this kind of penalty instead. That just doesn't work. Rules have to be like playing Monopoly. There's a set of rules, and then you decide how you apply your strategy with those rules. The budget cap, going above the budget cap is not cheating. It's going in the part of the rules that means you will have a penalty. Basically. Then you need to know what the penalty is.
Otherwise nobody can judge you, because I think you're right. The people that feel there should be a penalty applied want the strongest penalty, but it's only one of a menu. You're absolutely right.
But also, if it's a big fine that goes into the FI's pockets, then what purpose does it serve? None.
No, it's just a cost of business.
If it's a big fine that gets shared with all the other teams, then it helps the other teams. And it helps more the small teams, because they're the ones who are far away from their budget caps. So that would be useful.
You should get involved in the rule writing.
Oh, I would be hated.
Jacques, many, many thanks for your time. It's been fantastic to talk to you, and I look forward to seeing you at a Grand Prix again before too long.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Cheerio.
Bye.